Tuskegee experiment for a minute. The Tuskegee experiment, that's what most people know of when they think about experimentation on blacks. They know about the Tuskegee. However, there's some people who don't believe that medical experiments happen at all.
Right. Yeah. I was going to mention the fact that, I applaud the people that red flag pop up and say, hey, wait a minute, for free? No, I don't think so. But you got so many people that have a lot of faith in doctors. If the doctor says something wrong with me, it's something wrong with me. I'm going to the doctor. I'm not going, you have a lot of people, a lot of black people.
But what could you do about that? Is there any way that you could not trust in your doctor?
Well, this is how I plan to go to the doctor. I'm going to tell the doctor, what medicines would you take? Would you take that medicine? I'll take it, okay? Yeah. Or I would say, hey, where do you recommend? Where would you go for treatment? That's where I go.
Well, they don't
That's
have
how
to
I'm
tell
going
you the truth. They
don't have to tell me the truth, but I'm going to at least let them know
she
that,
mentions that in the epilogue of the book. She's like, actually, part of the problem is that as black people, we have become distrustful of the whole medical community, and we're not involved in the process. And she says, that's kind of a contradiction, as she's giving you reasons to be distrustful. But she's saying we have to be more involved in the process. We've pulled back.
She presented both views. She said, in the meantime, when we do go to hospitals, now we see more people who are like us. So we shouldn't be so afraid of the racial disparity. But she really presented both sides, where we still need to be knowledgeable. We have to question everything that happens.
Yes, we do.
Everything.
And I think that there was this woman, to the point that I was making, is that people don't believe that experimentation actually takes place in this country. I was at my daughter's school, my son's school, picking up his report card one day, and I was talking to one of his teachers, and I was reading the book, so I had it with me, because, I like to read in between if I'm just kind of sitting there waiting somewhere, whatever. So anyway, she saw the book. She's like, oh, what is that you're reading? I told her what the book was about. And she said, do our government actually do that? So she was totally floored by the fact that the United States government would commit any type of experimentation on people, period. This wasn't even in the realm of possibility in her mind.
Right, and I believe it's a lot of people that way.
And they talk about, they don't mention current wars, but they're talking about, World War II, where people, let's see how much radiation the body can take.
Well, actually, they did mention something current.
But I think that she could have gone deeper into, people talk about Gulf War syndrome. They talk about the wars that we're in now. Afghanistan, what are we going to do, if Saddam or somebody unleashes, this type of biochemical whatever. She mentioned anthrax, but it just got me to thinking. It really gets you paranoid.
But not only,
to how do they know how to defend against a chemical attack unless they've tested on something?
They test on us. Bottom line is nothing stands in the way of progress. Exactly. Whether you like it or not, nothing stands in the way of progress. They got to have it.
Right, and as you mentioned, in terms of experimenting on people, that's happening now, in terms of doing these things right now, she didn't necessarily mention a war, but she talked about how the military, and this is like recently, as in 2000 or 2001, somewhere around there, between that and 2003, where the military was conducting biochemical experimentation, and they used mosquitoes. She said they took 4 million mosquitoes per day, and they took these mosquitoes and they unleashed them into a black community to see if these mosquitoes would spread yellow fever and malaria and some of these other diseases onto this black community. And in fact, they did do that. And the death toll went up in that community as a result. But of course, they denied any knowledge of the whole thing.
So that means bird flu is suspect. That means swine flu is suspect. Yeah. All of these flus are suspect because I hear the government has 20 747 Boeing jet planes that they have changed into chemistries, flying chemistries. And over some of these places in Mexico, when swine flu took place, the sightings of these planes supposedly had taken place.
You mean chemistry labs, right?
Chemistry labs, yeah.
Yeah, where the planes went over and then next thing you know, people got sick.
Right. Do you remember one of the things during the Obama election and Reverend Wright, they were pulling all these tapes and they were like, Reverend Wright, says that AIDS could have been concocted by the government to hurt black people. They're like, that's just ridiculous. It's a little bit ridiculous, but when you read this book,
it's not so ridiculous.
It's not outside of the realm of possibility.
What really piqued my interest though was the experiments on the children. Yeah, one
Right,
incident
right.
with
Nobody was untouchable. Nobody, no
especially
one.
the foster children. So it even makes me think now, those children who are in the system, what happens to them
Yeah,
when they're
and
in the
the-
doctor?
the reason
Everybody's
why-
got ADHD. Everybody
Right,
has
and
it.
Right, they're trying to give
were
you
the ones who
medication
they were,
for 'em.
those were the ones who they were experimenting on, the ones who they said had ADHD or some other
Right.
form of disorder, and they wanted to test them and so forth. Well, they were actually experimenting on it, and the reason that they were able to do that is because, according to the book, there's a problem with the document called informed consent. So
Yeah.
you don't have a parent there who can actually sign to say it's okay for you to do that because the kids are in the system, so they don't have people.
It was
to-
sad
to
about
sign.
the mother who had the 2 children who were going through a medical experiment, and she took the medicine away from the kids because they were doing better when they weren't on the medicine. They came and knocked on the door and took her kids away. She was ready to adopt them, but they took her kids away because they said she would not comply with the medical.
Yeah, well, that was obviously a problem.
Well,
I mean,
the other thing too is they had been experimenting on prisoners, and she talked about that quite a bit too. Now we might talk about prisoners for a minute. We've only got a couple of minutes left on the show, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was the Tuskegee experiment, just for a minute, since most people are familiar with the Tuskegee experiment. Now I know that she said that it didn't actually start off as an experiment. What about that?
No, it didn't start off as an experiment. It started off with what's his name?
Booker T.
Booker T.
Washington.
Washington. He was trying, him and another gentleman, they was trying to do some good things with this program. It was about syphilis, I believe, also. But what happened was the guy that was funding it, when the stock market crashed, then they didn't have any more funding. Then the government stepped in and said, "Hey, look, we're gonna resume this project." But then a doctor said, "Hey, wait a minute. How about if we just don't give them the medication and see what happens?"
And that was really the ultimate problem
Yeah.
with the Tuskegee experiment, is that these men had syphilis, and the problem wasn't that they injected them with the syphilis virus. The problem was they withheld the treatment for the syphilis virus, and by withholding the treatment, number one, they didn't tell the guy, so they didn't know that they were being studied, and number two is the damage that syphilis can do if it goes untreated in the human body is precisely what they wanted to find out. They wanted to see what damage was it going to do to the human body.
And so they followed them around like hawks, waiting for somebody to die so they could dissect them and see what it did. Yeah, for 40 years.
Wasn't it one woman who was supposed to follow each one around and keep up with
just
each
for a second,
person?
we've only got 1 minute left to go on the show. Gavin, what do you think about Medical Apartheid? Do you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Thumbs up, best book we've ever read.
Benita.
Thumbs up, definitely.
Tony.
Thumbs up.
All right, I give Medical Apartheid a thumbs up. I think it was an excellent book. I mean, the research was impeccable. The writing was even more so. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention, Fannie Lou Hamer, I don't know if you guys caught that, but they had something called the Mississippi appendectomy. And she said over a period of time, there were X number of women who had experienced appendectomies. And I guess this is they're removing the uterus from the woman, basically sterilizing the woman so that they can't have babies. And she said that that happened to Fannie Lou Hamer when she was, I think, 19 years old.
Right.
And she ended up going through it. Right. And after that, she became a crusader, and that's how she ended up become a civil rights activist, because they did this to her. And then, of course, she realized, hey, I'm never going to be able to have babies ever in life. So she actually was.